Hi guys, welcome back. Today we have a guest who needs absolutely no introduction. It's the new world champion. Welcome everybody to Meg Jacoby. Meg Jacoby, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh, we're
Um,
really excited to have you. Thank you so much.
yeah, to make time for us in what is probably a really busy period and a period that you want to just spend some downtime and maybe not keep talking about Hyrox. How's the
I
week
think,
been since the World Championships?
yeah, it's like I feel like it's finally like kind of settling in just because I'm like kind of more in an environment I'm like a little bit more used to. Being in France for like a whole we stayed an extra week just to like vacation. Um but it kind of like didn't really like fully hit, I think, because like we were still there. So that was
Yeah.
like kind of something over the weekend when I got back and like settled. I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe I can believe it happened, but I can't believe it happened. It's one of those like catch 22 things where you go in obviously feeling like you could win if you have a good day, but then when it happens, you're like it goes by also so fast. Like we've been training super hard for that weekend for like months, and then it's like an hour, it's over, and you're like, wait, that was it? Like it's over? It's weird. It's like a weird feeling almost. So, and
Bit of
then
a
like there were
whirlwind.
other things I did. Like I raced two other races that weekend. So I think it was kind of like I finished and then it was like, okay, I have, another race. I have two more races on Sunday. So I'm like not really letting it like sink in. I'm like, okay, focus on the next thing. I don't know. It was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. You almost couldn't kind of get too swept up in all the glory of winning on the Friday night, knowing that you had to still compete for another 2 days.
Yeah, there wasn't like a ton of celebrating or anything. So not that like I don't know what would we even do. I don't know, but then I
You
was
didn't
like,
you
oh
didn't even have a
crap, I have to like
cheeky glass of fizz
no,
or anything? No.
I I didn't know. And then the elite relay, I was like, oh shit, like I have to like go so hard in this. So that was also like I had a fun race in the mixed doubles. Because for me, my partner, I'm like hanging out on the runs and he's like suffering. And so for me, it was like a lot more like relaxed. But then the elite relay was like very intense. So you almost like had to just get like super psyched up for that. So it was a really interesting weekend, I guess, all in all.
I'm not surprised you've slept so much since since that weekend.
Yes, because there was actually zero sleep. Friday night, I didn't sleep literally a single minute. We had gotten, this was totally my mistake, but probably people will find this amusing. We had the jug test after the race, which they kind of just like swept us up and they were like, okay, you have to come upstairs now. And like, we were assigned a person. They had to like monitor us the whole time. But they had like water and Red Bull and nobody could go to like none of us could pee and we had to pee so much in this cup and I was like chugging Red Bull at like 9 p.m.
Oh,
and then like not really realizing like how late it was and that this is a caffeine drink. I had like two and I was up the entire plus the adrenaline of like the race and winning and everything like I did a race. My boyfriend and I are watching the race at 3 in the morning, and we're going over. We're analyzing it. Like it's the weirdest. And
absolutely buzzing.
he's like, look at here. Like he was so proud and so sweet. But and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I know. I was doing it. Like I kind of know
I
how
was
it was
there.
going. You know what I mean? But yeah, we didn't sleep at all, and then I really try to immerse myself into the community when I'm at the events, just because I feel like it's so important and the community is so amazing. So Saturday, I had a few obligations, and then we ended up just being at the venue, just like talking to people for like hours. So I pretty much did like a 24-hour, like no sleep, and then tried to race twice Sunday. So it was like a really, I'm like, I still feel like my body is not like normal. I'm like finally catching up on like recovery. So it's good.
Intense.
Yeah,
Yes,
very.
very, very. I was like, I am running on caffeine in a dream right now. Like, I don't know how I'm awake. So,
It's amazing what adrenaline can do, eh?
yeah, absolutely.
So would you be able to kind of talk us through the race on the Friday night, from like what you were feeling like on the start line, and did you know that you were
Yeah.
gonna try and go out? Like what was in your head? Like how did you feel?
Well, I think the one interesting thing about being in the Elite 15 is that I race with these ladies so much. Um, Most of the field I've raced with 4 to 5 times this season. So with that, you know what your competitors are going to do, you know their style, you know their strengths. So I knew we were going to go out hot. That's Lauren Weeks for you. I also like to go out hot. So I know like, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. And I think, we train that way intentionally. But I also knew my game plan. So I think that's probably what I'm most proud of from the race, is that I executed my game plan perfectly. And that doesn't always happen, especially when you're racing with this level of women. It's very easy to get swept up into what other people are doing and not focusing on how to run the race you need to run for your own best performance. So I was really, really proud that I nailed the execution, because when we got to the sled push, I had only allowed a certain gap. And I knew that that was going to happen. And I knew I just had to stay calm, because if I overextend a little bit too early, this might hurt me in the long term. I know what Lauren's going to do. That's what she always does. So I knew I just had to keep I couldn't let her get too far away, but I also didn't want to be putting out too much energy early either. So it was finding that sweet spot. And then I think, as you saw on the sled push, we pretty much left right together. Well, we did leave together. On that next run, I was able to kind of take over towards the end going into the sled pull. And that is a huge strength of mine station wise. And I knew while that was going on, I'm kind of seeing that I'm starting to really make a big gap, even on Lauren, I know was really struggling there, but Vivian Tafudo had come in shortly behind us. I knew I started getting a big gap there. And that's a station that is a slow station. It just does this. The sled pull is just very technical. It's the most technical, I think, of the stations, managing the rope, understanding how to pull effectively. So if you get a gap there time wise, that ends up being a lot of time. It doesn't look like it from maybe the spectating side. Like if you have half a lane of the pull, that's 30 seconds, maybe even more, depending on who it is. So when I left, I knew, okay, I've already got probably 30 seconds just on the pulling. Now I have to push this run to start gaining even more. And then when I got into burpee broad jumps, I had 2 full lanes done before the next person came in. And again, when you get really familiar with the race, you understand how long time-wise that takes. So I'm thinking this is a minute and I'm probably 90 seconds up right now. And maybe even slightly more.
Were you just thinking, this is mine? Like by the time, when did you think, when did it switch from like, this is a race to like, this is mine now?
It's one of those things where until it's over, you never feel like 100% secure.
Yeah.
But the way the race works, if you're even in the middle of the race and you have a minute or more lead, unless something goes drastically wrong for you, likely you have it. And we've seen that a few times this season. I won the first 2 races by over 2 minutes, and it was right around the sleds when it happened. Then Lauren beat me by roughly a similar time frame, and it was the same exact situation. It's kind of one of those where if someone gets a decent enough lead, the race is not quite long enough to be able to make that up, because we're all so strong, and especially the front women, we're so strong in the second half that no one's slowing down.
Yeah.
So if you get that lead a little bit early, it's not 100%, but odds are you're probably going to be able to maintain that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really hard for someone else to overtake you. So when I got to burpee broad jumps, and also just knowing how good I felt, I was like, okay, I think I've got this. And it was kind of interesting because I had gotten a lead. So like I'm out, and then I'm hearing Faisal, and like I'm listening, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, and then it's Kate Davy, and then it's Vivi. It was so chaotic. Like the race, the rest of the race, just part of the reason I watched it back again so many times. It was so good. Like the race was so entertaining for the next few positions. It was incredible. Kate Davy came in second to me on the rower, and I looked and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she was a bit of the same. I think she was the same. She was like,
she's a close friend. So this was the funniest thing ever. She has a photo of me. We're both on, she just started the row, and I'm like,
oh,
what? You know, like, not that I would ever not believe in her, because I do, but knowing who else is in the field and how some of the other big races have played out, I was just kind of like, holy shit, Kate Davies in second place. Yeah. I'm like, good for her. Like, I'm like so excited for her. But it was very interesting, like hearing then the rest of the race going on and how much back and forth was happening. I mean, the wall balls too was like mind blowing, because I'm like in my own world. I'm being interviewed. I don't really know what's going on in the race. And then the next thing I know, I'm down there. People are running on the stage, and they're running back down. They're doing another one. It was like, I'm like, what's happening? It was so, it was very interesting.
Very chaotic.
It was very chaotic.
But I think
felt like,
you must have done about 90 wall balls, was it, before anyone even came in? It was quite.
Yeah, no, it was like
I
last 10.
basically finished them, and I was like, I think she's gonna pretty much finish these before anyone even comes in.
Yeah,
like it was mad.
That was also crazy. I think I had 95 before Linda, who was second at that time, before she had started, or she did like one, and I was on 95, and that was crazy. So when I came into the wall balls, I think you see I'm like smiling, and I'm like, you know, pumping my fist. I think that's when I obviously knew, like, okay, I'm safe, especially because I don't think
You're
anyone would be surprised. Correct. Right.
I'll
so
say
it's
it
like,
for
okay,
you. You're incredibly good at
tight race. Even if it was tight and I had barely any lead, I feel confident on the wall balls that I'm gonna get it. But then I did have the pressure, like I I'm on.
We'll try and get her to repeat it. Give it a second if the signal comes back.
And he goes, she's gonna go unbroken, and I was like,
Meg, sorry to
okay, because
yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
So
we just totally lost you then. Here. What were we on?
Are you there?
What was the last thing? Was it about the wall balls then?
Yeah.
Just as we lost.
Have we got you back? Yeah.
Side, so that way the connection will be better.
There we go.
Are we good now?
We're back.
Oh, I think we're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, perfect.
Kind of.
Okay. I think we lost you when you were talking about being on the wall balls. Which?
I said that Faisal had put immense pressure on me to go
That's
unbroken
one.
at
That's
like
one.
wall ball number 60. I was like, oh, okay, it's fine. Only 40 more, like, you know, dying. And then I remember when I crossed, I like lifted my arm. This was it. Like, it wasn't,
Yes.
I could not put them up. Like, this was all I could do.
Your shoulders were gone.
Crossing the line. Yeah, totally gone. Totally gone. You're just in, it's this crazy feeling when you have those types of moments. And when I had gotten the first under 60 minutes time back in the last spring, I felt this way as well. You almost black out during the wall balls. Like it's just literally your body going, like you don't even know what you're doing. Like that feeling of that overwhelming feeling. Like I'm so happy. I can like kind of feel the emotions like starting to come up, and I'm just like, no, I don't even really know what's going on at that point. So it's kind of one of those. So I always say to people how important just repetition is, because sometimes you have no idea what you're actually doing out there. Your body's just going through the motions. But it was pretty overwhelming, and my daughter was there.
So cute.
Who, yeah, that it meant a lot for her and a lot for me, and a lot for her to see. I always say how blessed she is to see so many strong women, not just me, but coming to these races, watching everybody else too, how inspiring that is for little girls all over the world. And I think it means a lot to us as moms. There's so many moms in the Elite 15 too.
I know.
And all of us have daughters. So it's incredible for them to get to see this, I think.
Imagine in 20 years when we've got mini Megs and mini Laurens and mini Kate Davies, when it's going to be a whole new Hyrox of like.
I know. I met so many kids. It was so cute how many kids were like wanting to get a photo with me, and all were competing in the kids Hyrox that they had put out. And I just thought in 10 years, this is the next generation of greatness. And so to be able to even just have those conversations and hopefully be a source of inspiration on their own journeys, I think that's like probably the coolest part of all of it. So yeah, it's really cool. My daughter probably won't do Hyrox because she hates running, and she tells me all the time. So if it was just the station, she would love it. But
yeah,
she's like, nope, the running is not for me. So
more of a CrossFitter, maybe.
Yes, I think so. I'm like pushing the gymnastics early. So like maybe someday we already have those skills, because I think that's the hardest part of CrossFit, of course.
Oh, totally. That's why we like Hyrox, because we don't have to do any crazy
handstand
gymnastics or handstand walks or anything.
Yeah.
What about leading up to the race? Did you do anything different for this world champion? Like, could you talk us through maybe some things that you dialed in on or changed or focused on more?
Yeah, so I actually flew over in early May to Doha, and it was kind of one of those, it was about exactly 4 weeks out from Worlds. So it was a good opportunity to get one last race in and kind of test out some different strategy than I would normally maybe do in a higher level, more on the line type of race. So that really helped the next 4 weeks of my training leading up to Worlds, like kind of knowing what I needed to dial in a little bit more. I went out really hard there on purpose and just kind of like wanted to see how like it felt in the back end. And I think we approach Hyrox a little bit more conservatively typically. So I went out like a rocket, and it was very it was not advised. So I wouldn't advise anyone else to do that, because it really sucked. Yes. The last like lunges and wall balls were like, oh my God. And it was like terrible conditions. It's a 12-hour direct flight from New York. I landed Friday morning and then I raced Saturday. So it was like, but that's part of this game too. So also just testing out different strategy with the travel, I think is super important. Cause that's something I know a lot of people in conversation were saying, like, it's so hard to travel halfway across the country and then compete. And it really is an art. And I do it so often now that it's like, you're still kind of trying to figure out what works best for you. So that was kind of my goal with that. And then I actually stayed in Europe from then till Worlds. I'm in Cyprus. And so I was training in the heat, which helped immensely because it was so hot. It happened to be so hot in that venue. I felt like I was very used to that. So it didn't affect me at all, which was like a really nice blessing. But I came over early to get on time on the time schedule. And that also benefited me a lot. I mean, I'm really lucky that I was able to do that. I know so many, like, that's not a typical situation for most people. But I would say that it obviously helped me out a lot and ended up working to my advantage because I was just ready. I trained late at night sometimes for that reason as well. I think that's something I would advise people to do is if you can train at different times of day, it's going to help you because you're not guaranteed a certain time in a race. And we race very often in the Elite 15 at night, late, 6:30, 7 p.m. And I think that doing that in training helps your body become used to that. So that was also something I changed a little bit. Like it was an early morning session and then a late session. Sometimes I wasn't starting until 6:30, 7 o'clock, finishing at almost 9. But it really prepared my body to have the energy at that kind of hour. So, and then I just really dialed in the nutrition. I had blood panels done to make sure that I was hitting all my micronutrients, all the supplements, all of that stuff. When we get to this level, all the little things really start to make that much of a difference, even if it's 1% improvement in performance. I mean, that's huge for us at this point. So, I just got really dialed in and it was really hard mentally to be like that for many weeks. I think it's such a blessing, but at the same time, like it's really your eat, sleep, and breathing training and recovery. And that's literally basically it. So I think for most people, that's not easy to do.
Yeah. And it's a lot when it's all for this
hour.
Like you said, it's over. Like
1 hour.
Yeah, it's so much dedication for like months and then weeks in the lead up, and like you are changing like a lot of things and making so many sacrifices to get all those little margins. But I mean, to pull off a performance like you did at the World Champs, I'd say, it worked. Whatever you did, it worked.
Thank you.
It was
I just gave all the secrets away, but that's okay.
It was so good to watch though. It was both the races actually were so good to watch, but we were just like, that's it, Meg's won it. And then it was like, well, who's going to come second? Because it was kind of like, you've taken that, like something has to go badly wrong, like for you not to take the win. And what did you, Meg, I'm interested in your thoughts on Lauren, on the sleds. Like I know a lot of people have been talking about it, and I understand it's like you two are very close anyway, and all the girls are close. But the sleds, what were your thoughts on the sleds? And
we had tested them a little bit the morning of the race when we did the elite walkthrough, and I definitely knew that they felt. I think we all were like, we kind of tested a little bit, and it was they weren't moving so great. So. And in Doha, I think my sled push time I was being conservative. It was like 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes. So we've seen that's a much more typical time for us on the sled push, like low 2 minutes. So I think I was over 3 minutes. I don't remember exactly, but that was very unusual for us. felt very, even though I wasn't necessarily fast on the sled push, I think I was very smart in where I was braking, and I felt very good running off of it. So I think that's kind of the key, is like, if it does feel heavy, you really need to be very strategic on when you take breaks. So that way you're not so blown up after. And that was kind of like what I was trying to do when I realized that they weren't moving necessarily as quickly as we've seen them. And then the sled pull, like I said, if it's heavy or not heavy, I think for me, I'm very, very efficient there. So it was just that was fine for me, but I know a lot of people really, really struggled on the sled pull, and that was, hearing it was crazy. Like, I think Lauren came out of there maybe 8th or even further back.
Yeah.
And so I'm out and I'm on the run, and hearing that was like, it was crazy.
Because
and I feel for her.
Yeah, you couldn't have played that through, I don't think. I don't think anybody expected it. So even for you in the race, I'm like, that must have just not thrown you off, but you must have been like, what? Like,
yeah, it was very strange to hear. And then you're kind of like, I hope she's okay. Like, I hope she didn't hurt herself or something, which she didn't, but it was just one of those. I think if you're a smaller, petite athlete, the sled pull, if you're a taller, stronger athlete, the sled pull is usually no problem for you. I feel it's an advantage. And then I feel that if you're a smaller athlete, the push is actually an advantage for you. It just seems to play out that way. So I was like, wow, okay. And a lot of the other women, we are taller. We're all 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", maybe a little bit bigger than her. So maybe we just had an easier time with like the body weight aspect of it. But yeah, it was very interesting hearing that. And I knew Vivian would be probably next, because I was paying very close attention to her sled, because I'm like, okay, she's halfway and I'm I knew she would be someone I needed to beat there. Yeah, she's also super strong athlete. So but I also kind of knew, like, okay, even if we come out together, I'm the better runner, so I'll be okay on the run. But still, that's where knowing your competitors and also being very in tune with yourself and how you feel, it's super important. Just so you do know how much to push and how much not to push, and how to play the long game, because it's like a long race, but it's like over fast at the same time. It's that kind of that middle thing where you can't wait too long, but you also don't want to blow up early either. So it's kind of finding that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask about like so obviously we saw in the men's race, the sled pull, that Sandy got the penalty. Like, do you, when you're in the race or even when you're training, like, do you replicate like the box, or do you have anyone watching you to say like, no, you've stepped over, or like, are you extra cautious when it's like the World Champs Elite 15 race? How do you deal with the kind of those rules for like the burpees and the sled pull? Do you approach it differently? So
I am for those who know me, they know that I am a very big stickler on the form and the rules. So I practice everything exactly the way it is written. So I was told in Doha by one of the head judges, they were going to be really crazy hard on the burpee broad jumps. So I was practicing with my palm touching the top of my toes the entire next 4 weeks. I wasn't taking any risk. I wasn't putting my hands out in front of my feet at all. Like, I was like, if they're going to crack down and that's going to be maybe the new rule, I'm practicing it that way 100%. And same with the sled pull. I do definitely replicate the box, and I know exactly how many steps back I have. Like, I count them very specifically for that reason. So even if I don't have like the best setup in practice, I know it's okay. I take 6 steps and then I'm back at the front, and I just try to replicate it that way. We are definitely more cautious because they've actually changed the sled pull penalty. It used to be 5 meters both directions. which was like insane. They found out like how long that takes.
Yeah.
So they did change it to just one, thankfully. But yeah, we are definitely more cautious with that, because even doing 5 meters, running all the way down, having to pick the rope up, starting the pull, it could be 40 seconds, which is so drastic if it's a close race at that point. The fact that Sandy had that penalty and then still came into the wall balls first
is mad.
He and I are also good friends. And when I texted him after, like watching it again, I was like, holy shit. I'm so glad for Alex Ronkovich. So I certainly don't mean it in any kind of way, but like, if Sandy hadn't gotten that penalty and ran the race that way, he would have won.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I mean, even just to come in second, it was like crazy. And also keep your head in the game.
Yeah, especially
that's even more impressive, because it's so hard when something happens like that and you know you're in the lead.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden you get this penalty and you just cost you so much time, and you're watching people running out. Just to be able to keep your head in the game and keep fighting that hard, I was very, very impressed by his performance.
Especially
and I think
No, I was going to say, especially after the season he's had a pretty rough season, and he had the episode with the rowing machines, like, and then also he had all the cramping. So like for him to come back, it was extraordinary. It was such a good race.
Absolutely. Yeah. So really the men's race was incredible. It was so exciting.
Yeah.
So exciting. And then even again, in the wall balls, if anybody listening hasn't put this together, the wall balls are so massively important, because everything can change. In both races, we saw so much happening on the wall balls. I mean, Lauren came in, I think, seventh at wall balls and finished second. So if we have wall balls all day, do your upper body push.
Yeah, get those thrusters in.
Do your wall balls. Like, it is so important to have that weapon in your back pocket. And then again, same with Alex surpassed Sandy there. Palaio surpassed Hunter. Like, I mean, there was so much shifting because of the wall balls. So that's a really key spot.
Alex like said, I think I heard him say, like, he knew he was going to have to do about 120 unbroken, because obviously because of the counters and the controversy with the female race that he'd just seen, he kind of mentally prepared himself to do 120. Like, how are the girls and how is everyone feeling about everything with the wall balls? I mean, it probably didn't affect you as much because you didn't have somebody's counter go next to you, but like, there was quite a bit of controversy with that. And then Sandy's stopped working and his went back to one. And what's the deal with Hyrox and the elites and the wall ball situation? There must have been some talks about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things where it's such a strong station for me. And I would say Lauren as well. It didn't seem like we had any problems. I think I had 1 or 2 no reps out of the 100. It was all working perfectly fine for me, and they were justified no reps. Like, every once in a while you kind of like duff one, like you don't quite get it where it needs to go. So it was those were, and in a normal race I get 1 or 2 for sure. So it's like, okay, not a problem for me. I was feeling, and I still feel really, for Viola Oberlander, I'm feeling very like it's really tough. I think the way she handled it the rest of the weekend, I'm just in absolute awe of her. She's another person that I'm pretty close with. We're both ESN athletes. We've done a lot more races together this season. But I just have tremendous respect for the way that she handled it, because she was one of the people who got, she finished, her thing says 100, she crosses, they're pulling her back. She had gotten a penalty for leaving the skier just slightly too early. And that's the penalty from the wall ball. And then the skier penalty ultimately put her in 4th place. And she technically finished second. And so that's really heartbreaking. And again, it's like, it's not to discredit anybody else because this is sports and that's just the way that it goes sometimes. But I was really impressed by she just kind of owned it and was like, I'm going to see if Hyrox can just review the footage because I want to know what happened for my own peace of mind. But she was like totally fine with it, you know, once it all kind of settled down. And I think that speaks volumes to her character. Because I don't know if I would be handling it as well. I would be like, what? You know
also,
what I mean? So,
when you guys, you're professional athletes, and there is like money on the line, for example, for you to fund your next race, or you know, people have stopped working, so that's money for their jobs. So there's more than just, I guess, getting on the podium. Even though making a podium at World Champs is just
exactly. And
huge.
I think it's nice to hear people consciously understanding that, because I think that when you become a pro athlete, there's also sponsors, and then there are bonuses for performance. And so it's not just the money of the race. There's other money on the line potentially too, or even just opportunities based on where you're placing. There's a lot of factors to why it's so important that the judging is accurate and that all of that, everything is working. Like I said, I didn't have any issues with the targets myself, and I did wall balls 3 times that weekend. However, I said very early in that day when we saw them for the first time, this is going to be a problem. And I knew it. I knew it was going to be an issue. People were testing them out. They were very sensitive. It felt like some of the judges were telling us, okay, that would have been a no rep. And we're kind of like, what? You know, like, so there was a little bit of chaos that morning with kind of like understanding, why are we doing something brand new at World Championships? Why are we just not implementing this maybe next season? At the very beginning, we know what to expect. At Worlds, and especially after the rower debacle in DC, we're kind of like, is the electronics going to work, or is it going to go down again? And you're kind of like, okay. And like I said, I was confident it wouldn't maybe be an issue for me, but I knew it was going to be an issue for others. And it kind of did prove to be that way a little bit. So, and then, seeing Sandy's, like all of a sudden he's on it's saying 11. And my thought too was for the spectators, if the way they described it to us was they have someone, your judge, controlling that. So if they no rep you, it will go down, but then you're supposed to listen to the judge. So if the counter could be wrong, but your judge could be right, they don't necessarily need to be matching. So I'm thinking, if my counter says 95 reps, my judge is telling me 100 and to go, to the crowd, that's going to look really weird. So that was because that was what they were saying. It was like, you are listening to your judge. Don't worry about what the number on the thing says. And so that was also very confusing, because it's like, so again, like the counter didn't need to match what my judge was saying. And so I was like, I think even just for spectating purposes, this is going to get really strange. And it did play out that way. So
especially for the girls as well, when they both see 100, like if you see 100 and someone's running for that finish line, there's no way you're going to look for the judge.
I'm just going to go for that finish line. Someone to tap my shoulder and tell me to go. I'm going.
You're going to go.
And I'll risk it. Like, exactly. So, and I even think my thought process with the no rep and someone just running because it says 100 and them trying to drag them back down. They're laying on the floor. You're trying to get them up to go do one more rep. Just give them the time penalty. Like, what are we doing? You know, like that to me was also kind of like, there was confusion. And if you feel like she didn't do one, yes, exactly. So that's kind of like, I would rather just see them implement like a rule, like if you duff the last one,
Yeah,
you just get a 5-second penalty,
penalty.
but we're not going to try to drag you off the stage when you've collapsed already to do one
and
more
all your
race.
kids are on top of you. And
we're all jumping on you.
Yeah.
You can't get up.
Yeah.
So
you're being pinned down, but the judge is trying to pull you up. And
Yeah.
oh
God.
man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely a talking point. And then I think when the guys came on and it happened to Sandy as well, then everyone's just like, wow, what is going on?
Yeah.
But I think as an athlete, especially at the high end, like you guys, professional athletes, like every second counts, every place counts. It's like, yeah, it's crazy because it's the last station. So like,
Yes.
for example, leaving the ski early and then getting your penalty, well, they're not going to run back and grab to finish a ski meters. So
Right.
yeah, it's
And it
kind of
wasn't
like,
even that she didn't get the 1,000. It was that it hadn't gotten to 1,000
yeah, it
before
didn't
she
like
left.
click over.
So you do that last pull, right?
Yeah,
And then
just
you
let it
kind of
go
like
and then
let it go. And that was what she had gotten the penalty for. And it's kind of like, I do understand that. And she was certainly not having an issue with that. It was just the unfortunate that she gotten the 2 and then that
at the
bumped her
same
back
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 places, which was absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
it was
God.
so crazy that it was really that close. I can't,
Yeah.
and that's the other side of it is, it's such a close race and you're just in the heat of battle. Like you can't hear anything.
Yeah.
There is nothing going up here. You're just trying to finish. You're exhausted. Like there's so many factors, like the way I think sometimes they say it with the judging, like just listen to your judge. It's like, I can't even hear you. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even know what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah.
That aspect, I think they forgot about that. Like, it's not that simple actually, when you're really in the heat of the moment, to just be like, okay, I'll look at that and I'll listen and then I'll run. Like, I'm not remembering the order of those instructions at that point. So I think every season they've learned and they've implemented things better, because I do think they are really getting much better about form. I think they're starting to crack down on that a little bit more. It seems like even at some races, you see videos and it's madness, but a lot of the races are getting a lot better in general. So that's nice to see. Because I think it legitimizes our sport. And I think that's something we all should want. Obviously there's like age differences. So if you're in the 60 plus, like, dude, you can even walk through the burpees. I don't care. I'm impressed. But I think for the vast majority of people who are competitive and trying to get spots for worlds and things, it's important that we're all doing everything correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Yeah, 100%. And bringing in the drug testing as well. It's really good to
Absolutely.
hear that's coming in, and it just makes, it legitimizes the sport, and gives everyone like faith that everyone's on a level playing field, which is great.
And I know there will always be people who don't believe the results regardless, but as someone who tends to be accused of regularly because of my muscularity, I'm very happy about it, because I'm very lucky and I work very, very hard. And so it's one of those things, I think, again, it just legitimizes our sport that much more. It makes it really more of a professional sport, especially because there is prize money on the line and all of that is increasing. So it's really important. And I think it's great that they started it this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what about the off season then? What does that look like for you? Are you having some more chill time, or are you getting straight back into training?
It's hard to not train because I love it.
Love it.
So, but I am doing a strength block, which I'm really excited about. I love lifting. I know those who follow me know that. So kind of excited to do other things for a little bit, which the repetition of Hyrox is great, but it's also very monotonous at times. So I'm excited to kind of like get under a barbell again and really start doing those things, because you get so specific with a big lead up to a big race like that you're not doing so much of the other stuff. You're really just focused on the movements of the event. So it'll be nice to like do other things. So I'm excited about that.
And do you coach yourself, Meg, or do you have
So Rich Ryan started coaching me.
Oh, so you do it with
when
Rich and okay.
Yes. So Rich and I became friends from him coaching me. And then we started working together. Our personalities just clicked. We had very similar views of training, and I was coaching running for many years before I got into Hyrox.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like a really great fit. And then we started collaborating on other projects together. We have an app together, but he does still help me with my training and my coaching. Okay. It is definitely more of a collaboration this season. Mm-hmm. I think last season I was pretty much mostly following what he would give me. And then just as you get more experienced with the race and what it requires, I felt with my experience over the years, I didn't need quite as much, of that, but it's been an awesome team up. And the best part about a coach for me is that he actually holds me back sometimes, which I need. So for me, I'm a workhorse. So it's never an issue with the discipline and the motivation. It's sometimes that I have a little too much of it. So sometimes you need a coach to like bring you back down a little bit. So it's good.
Have you had a rest day in 3 months? Meg, do you want to have a rest day?
There was one time during this training block where I think I went 23 days, and I was like, that's probably not optimal. Like you just kind of like love it and you forget, and then you're like, wait a second. It's been a while. I should probably, so don't do that. Anybody listening, don't do that. That is something I will be changing going forward. So trying to play things smarter is kind of the next step to,
And then goals for next season, is it just like, are you going to do the majors? Obviously you want to retain your title, go back and defend it, but.
Yeah, so defending the title will be a very big challenge. I know that. So honestly, my goal, as it would be anybody's. But yeah, I will be doing all of the majors.
2 seconds, Meg. I think we just lost you again.
Doubles. I think that's the little like change of pace. I think doubles is harder.
Meg, can you hear us? Oh yeah, there we go. Sorry, we just lost you at the. Yes, you just said okay. You just said defending your world title will be hard, and then we lost you after that. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so I will do all the major events, assuming they're not crazy far away, because there's a lot of rumors going around about locations.
Okay.
So that will be, the travel is just getting even more intense. It seems, as we have so many new countries coming in who want to host big races. So yeah, defending the title, I'll do all the majors. And really it's just trying to push the bar a little bit higher. I think records are really cool because I think it shows what the women are capable of doing. Mm-hmm. And I love that Lauren and myself have kind of been pioneers in that, like we're consistently running under 60 minutes. So seeing like really how, like, what can we really do? Like pushing that level, I think will be really interesting, and just seeing how fast we can actually get in the sport is pretty exciting. So I do like to try to chase down some of those times or records too. And it keeps you motivated in a different way. So yeah, those are kind of the plans so far.
Awesome.
Super exciting. Another great season ahead, I think, definitely.
I hope so. Lots of pressure now, right? It's like, uh-oh, got a big target on my back. So, yeah. But it's a privilege, right? They say pressure is a privilege. So I'm going to 100%. Take it for what it's worth.
Yeah. And a very well-deserved one. You've worked hard for it. So yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Meg, have you got anything else you want to add before we wrap up today's chat?
No, I'm good. I appreciate your guys' time, and it's awesome you guys are putting this kind of content out. So thank you for having me.
Oh, but man, I mean, it's our pleasure. We were
Yeah,
both
thank you.
fangirling earlier, weren't we? We were like, oh my God, I think we're going to get Meg Jacoby on the podcast. This is amazing.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
No, we appreciate your time. Absolutely. And yeah, well, the only other thing I wanted to touch base on is that whether you're going to take your daughter to a Taylor Swift concert now, because I know you're Swiftie fans.
Have
and
to.
she's going huge, isn't she? So I just needed to clarify that because I feel like that was the question I hadn't answered.
We've had many dance parties to some T Swift. So at some point, my daughter probably deserves a concert. I don't think she's cognizant of how expensive it is, but like I want to see her too. Now I'm like a huge fan, and I'm like, I want to wear the outfit and the hat and the whole thing. I gotta do the whole thing.
You've got to, that's got to be the celebration, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, Meg, thank you so much for your time today. For anybody that wants to jump on, if they don't already follow you, which I'm sure they do, if they're remotely interested in Hyrox, where can they follow you? On
Instagram, Meg Jacoby. You can find me there.
Perfect. And you've got your RMR podcast as well with Rich Ryan and Ryan King.
Yes. So we have an RMR podcast. We talk all types of hybrid training, tips, things we do, life stuff, how to handle all of that. So we are told it is very informative. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's a good listen on a long run, isn't it? We like to
awesome.
Put it on a run. So if you don't follow that and listen to that already, then hit that one up as well.
Yeah, happy days. Thank you very much. Cheers, Meg. Thanks for listening, everybody. And yeah, we'll see you on the next podcast.
Excellent.